From the studios in beautiful Oceanport, New Jersey, welcome to the biggest and greatest podcast ever. I'm your host, Ray K. Hey everybody, we got a pretty exciting show here. I'm kind of pumped up. I don't know where this is going to go, but I got a comedian, first time comedian on the show for a living. Joe Matarese on Letterman, performing in front of 18,000 people. America's Got Talent. The real deal. Has a medicated self-help podcast that's pretty intriguing. Joe has a mental health tour that seems pretty revolutionary coming up. I think it's up this upcoming weekend. I met Joe through a good friend of mine, Eric Hewson, from We're All a Little Crazy, movement that Eric has. And Joe, let's get into your anxiety, because that started this whole thing off, I guess, maybe leading into your career. I know 12 or 13. Start getting to that, and then we'll go from there.
Wow. You did research on me. Is that on my Wikipedia page? It says his anxiety started at 12 or 13 years old.
I read your little thing on We're a Little Crazy, so you talk about it. So it wasn't hard to find.
Oh, it was on there. Okay.
Yeah, it was on there. Yeah.
Okay. So you want to know about my anxiety and the evolution of it, where it began, or when I first started noticing it.
Either way, just start. Just let us know. Either way.
Well, I think I'm a parent, so hopefully parents can relate to this, because I always think when you're a kid and you start having anxious feelings, you don't know what the hell it is. You don't know what it means. Mm-hmm. You just think you're worrying about stuff. And it's like, because you hit a certain age, maybe it's puberty that brings it on. But when you're younger, right, you don't worry about anything. There's not what sort of worry about when you're 8, Mm-hmm. You got to be really anxious. I mean, I guess there are kids.
I guess homework and school, and, being bullied. There's stuff.
Being bullied, yeah, that's true. That's true. Being bullied could bring the anxiety on. I was never bullied. I never really had any of that. I got in your typical fights, with kids back. I'm 51, so I grew up in the 70s. There were those definite kickball. What you call them, courts? What did you call it? Where you played?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Right.
Yeah, there was always a kickball field outside the school, and there were fights. I don't even know. Does that still happen in grammar school? I never hear my son.
You mean like a fisticuff, squared-off fight with a ring of people around you? That kind of. I had one of those once. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
that's intense.
Well,
yeah.
I don't think I realized until I was an adult and getting some therapy when a doctor said, "Did you get in fights a lot growing up?" And I was like, that's what's great about therapy. They make you talk until you realize yourself what your problem is, because you start saying it, and when you're older, you have awareness in yourself. So when I heard myself go, "Well, yeah, there were some fights," mm-hmm. and then I see her making a little check mark in a notebook, you're like, okay, this is a sign of something to this psychologist. And she said that, that's a sign of anxiousness, anxiety problem. It's not normal to just snap easily. And, the next thing I know, I'm telling stories of it. One that comes to mind for me isn't even a fight. I remember the first time I played street hockey. We would play on these tennis courts, and I didn't know anybody there. My friend invited me, and we all show up, and some kid kind of checks me a little bit into the corner of the tennis court. And my immediate reaction, without even thinking, was I threw a flying elbow. And I hit this kid square in the face, knocked him down. He was just like, oh. And even though it was the 70s, it was still, I was so out of line that all the other kids were like, who brought this asshole? Why'd you do that? And I'm like, no one liked me. It wasn't like I was the cool bully or the cool tough kid. It was just like, well, what the hell was that for? And I mean, I always would apologize and feel bad for my actions, but going through school, there was definitely moments of just anxiety and anger. And then it turned into anxiety attacks, I think, when I started smoking pot with all the other kids in like 10th grade. It was the year, I always say 10th grade was like when pot starts to get introduced. And I was enjoying pot. I was always on the weekends with my friends. I was like a marijuana smoker. And the next thing I knew, full on just anxiety attack. After school, I smoked a joint in my house. And next thing I know, I can't breathe. I'm running down the street trying to make this feeling go away. I can't get it to go away. I can't, my chest is hurting. I fall down on the front lawn. I'm like, oh my God. And now I have to tell my mother that I smoked pot, and my mom was even more paranoid than me, and she started freaking out. She threw me in the car. And this is true. I used to do a long stand-up bit about it. I think I had a Comedy Central half-hour special where I tell this whole story because it's kind of funny, because she rushed me to the pediatrician. That's where she took me, she was probably afraid, like we were the Sopranos or something. I'm this Italian kid. She's probably afraid to bring me to the emergency room that her son would get arrested for smoking marijuana.
Okay.
So she takes me to the pediatrician, and then I felt like I was high for like 11 hours. It like wouldn't go away. The more anxious I got, the more I tried to make this feeling go away.
Was it too much pot, Joe? I mean, a full joint. I know people do a one toke or whatever they call it, and it's enough. I mean, a whole joint must have been like total overload.
Yeah, like pot back then is different than pot now. Pot now, these kids, I haven't, but this anxiety thing back then, like, it made me never want to smoke pot again, and I don't think I drank again until I was like 30. I was so paranoid of the littlest, I'm not in control of my body feeling, that it would bring on that anxiety attack feeling again. If I just like had a beer, I'd be like, I would freak out. I couldn't relax. And it was like a lifelong struggle that caused me to quit things in social situations where there's a little bit of anxiety. If you're the new kid in a social situation, like I always tell the story, I played a lot of sports growing up. I loved baseball. That was my game. And I wanted to be on the high school baseball team really badly, and I had an appendicitis right before the tryout started, and I couldn't go try out for the team. And then the coach let me try out after I healed from the appendicitis, and now all the kids on the team were selected. So when I came to try out, they all knew each other, and they were all joking with each other, and they had all these inside jokes, and that's all it took for me to feel really uncomfortable, to the point where I just quit. I quit. And after a one-day tryout, and the coach came up to me the next day, "You're going to come back?" "Yeah, I'm going to come back." And then I didn't come back. And then he saw me again. "What happened?" I'm like, "Oh, I'll be there today." And I just didn't go. And I didn't have the kind of parents that stepped in. They didn't push me. And I can really relate, because my son probably has some of this anxiousness, and I don't push him. I don't say you need to do this.
Is that good, or should parents push a little bit, or do you wish your parents pushed you when you were in high school for baseball, or was it good?
That's what it's funny, because I still go. I've been seeing the same therapist for like 15 years, and something we always go over is your son's not you. Because I always say I regret it. I regret quitting. I wish my dad would have pushed me. I wish my mom would have said, "You're not allowed to quit. You're a talented baseball player." It happened in the school play too. I started to have an interest in acting, and I went out for the school play, got a part, and then showed up the first day of rehearsals, didn't know anybody again. They were all the theater kids. They all knew each other from all the other plays. And then I just quit that, and no one made me go back to that either. So I try to push my son, and my son's very intelligent. And he's smart. He has like great answers. He'll say, "No, I don't like that." So it's like, what do you say to your kid if they go, "I don't like it"? Like his is with, he's a pretty good pitcher. He plays baseball, and his coach knows he's pretty good, and he'll want to put him in, and he'll say, "No, I don't want to pitch. I don't like it."
Wow. Okay.
And it's like, you know how hard that is as a dad when you see that your kid's pretty good at it. I'm like, you don't like what you're good at, or are you afraid? Is this anxiety? And because you think your kid is you, but then you realize he's not me. All right. He doesn't like it, but I'm not going to be I don't want to be that jerk dad that's like, get out there. You're going to do it anyway.
Right.
You know,
so you don't go out for baseball. I mean, that's a rough sport anyway, because you're going to make out 7 out of 10 times, you know, so, you know, if you have anxiety, that seems like one of the rough ones to take part in, you know. So you don't go out for that. So what happens through high school, after high school, you know, now you're getting in your
so then high school,
right.
So high school, I have like a learning disability, which comes into play, and I don't realize it because it's the early 80s again. There was no, hey, this kid needs to take Ritalin or Adderall, and this kid has attention deficit disorder. He's smart, but he's not, going anywhere near his potential. They don't know that. They just drop you in the low track classes. You have the worst teachers. You got, other kids that are not that smart. It's not exciting. Schools and, you don't have the great teachers. It can be really boring. I hated it. Then I couldn't get into college. I go to community college, and I meet a kid at community college who does an open mic, which is like, comedians can go to get on stage when you're not really a comedian yet. You can sign up.
Were you funny, Joe, like in high school? Were you a funny guy, or is this, were you just a normal guy like everybody, or did you have this talent of humor, or did you discover it?
I always tell people that, and I think a lot of comedians, because I hear them interviewed a lot, it seems to be very common, this anxiety thing, and that we use comedy to relax us. Comedy was something that I loved. I mean, I just would listen to comedy whenever I had that panic feeling. I would go put headphones on. I would listen to comedy albums, or I used to tape everything on TV, like a VHS. I would tape Saturday Night Live, and I'd have tapes of stuff that I would go watch. And I remember loving certain sketches on SNL, and I had them all on a tape, and I would watch them over and over again, or movies that I thought were hilarious, and I'd watch them. So I had wanted to try to do comedy. I never knew there was a place you could go and do it until this kid came up to me that I was starting to be friends with at Camden County Community College in Blackwood, New Jersey. And he comes up to me and goes, I got on stage last night. I did a little stand up. And I was like, where? And then he brought me, and then I signed up, and then I did it. And I never stopped. It was like the only thing I never quit in my whole life. Like from that first week, I just kept going and kept going. And there was never a lag. There was never like, and then I took a year off and then I came back to it. That never happened. I just started doing comedy. Realized this is what I wanted to do, and I dropped out of college, and I just went full force into it.
So you never had, like, I would call it like a regular job, working at, right after high school, kids get little jobs, or you work at just a telemarketer or whatever. You went right into comedy.
I had little jobs. I had my own business when I was younger that kind of was a place to not really give you comedy experience, but I was on a microphone. I was like one of those DJs you would see at like weddings and parties when I was like 18. When I was like 19, I worked for some DJ company, and they would give you the equipment and all the records, and you'd go and do people's parties or like play music at bowling alleys. I used to do those a lot. Then I bought my own equipment, and people started hiring me to do them. And I was doing that. I had my own business. And then I had a partner. And then we were getting all kind of those kind of gigs. And this is a classic story, but I started being funny on the microphone. And my partner would get pissed. He's like, dude, that's unprofessional. You can't say what you just said. I can remember that. I remember the time. There was a time where a woman came up and said, can you play the Rolling Stones, like Brown Sugar or something? And I go, yeah, I'll play that. And about 30 minutes goes by, and I start to play Rolling Stones' Brown Sugar, and this guy comes running up. He goes, oh, that's the song my wife wanted to hear. She's in the bathroom right now. Oh, God. And I got on the mic, and I go, she's in the bathroom. Doesn't she know you can go to the bathroom indoors? Right? Like, I just, like, made a joke, like, she's outside peeing right now. And my DJ partner was in the bathroom at the time. And he comes back from the bathroom, and I go, dude, I just said the funniest thing. And then I tell him, and he goes, you didn't say that. I go, yeah, it was funny. He goes, dude, it's funny. This gets a laugh on stage. And it's one of those, I don't even know why it gets a laugh, and you can even tell me. But I would go, this is true. It's one of those moments that truth it's funny on stage when you just tell the truth in front of an audience. He said, you got to make a decision, man. Do you want to be a comedian? Or do you want to be a DJ? He actually said that, and I just never DJ'd again. I was like, all right, this sucks. I don't want to be carrying crates of records up steps with holding these milk crates. I'm done. And then I went comedy full force because they were conflicting. They were on the weekends, both of them. So
you got to thank him a little bit then to kind of get you out of that, I guess.
Yeah, we're still friends. We're still friends. You know, he's one of my best friends, and classic. So you want to be a DJ?
Yeah, I don't know too many people that would. Well, I guess some people want to be DJs. They are out there. But so you're on stage, Joe. Do you just get this comfort feeling? I don't know. Can you escape from reality? Is that it, or you just had this inborn talent that you discovered that you're able to love the energy, or what is it? You
do suck for a really long time. So a lot of people start comedy and then quit. Because, imagine, me quitting baseball and me quitting the play at school. Like, this is even more attention on you, and there's a lot more failure involved. Like, you just stink when you start. Mm-hmm. And but somehow I enjoyed it. I did. Like what you're saying, was there a peacefulness to yourself? There's a couple things. Comedians always say that when you start to go to these comedy clubs, you realize that everybody there is very similar to you, so it feels comfortable. Okay. Like you felt like the weirdo, and none of my friends that I grew up with were really anything like me. Like, I was always a little weirder. I was in my basement performing alone, and they would catch me sometimes and go, "What are you doing?" I'd have cameras and I'd be filming things and making little movies and doing weird shit all the time. And they would go, "Dude, you're strange." And then I meet all these comedians in Philly at this place called the Comedy Works, is where I started doing open mics. And I was like, holy shit, these guys are all so similar to me. And I just wanted to be there.
What a cool thing. Now you discover something that you I don't know if you love it or you like it a lot, and you got people like you that are doing it, and you got an audience that is like you. I mean, it sounds like a pretty nice path ahead,
Right. You all, but then at the same time, I don't know if this is all comedians. This might be the Italian comedian or just my parents, but there's not a lot of positivity going on at home, My biggest critic, my grandmother, who's not alive anymore, but she lived to 93, was just always like, "What are you doing? Why don't you should quit this, get a real job. This is craziness." Mm-hmm. Like, she would just always say that to me. And she lived around the block. So it was like every time I saw her, which was frequent, was, "What are you doing? You should quit." So, like, instead of listening to that made me want to work at it even more, want to get good at this, show her that she's incorrect.
Okay. Right. Motivated.
I love going the opposite. I've had a lot of that in my career. Like, I realized I had an anger problem, with the anxiety brought anger, and it used to come out on stage. I would snap too easily. Like, if somebody wasn't listening and having a conversation in the front row, which happens sometimes, they're not listening. They're just having a conversation. They're drunk. They don't care. Mm-hmm. And I would lose it on them. And I would get very angry.
Yeah, that must have been kind of funny, like Sam Kinison, when the comedian starts yelling at the audience. There's something about that.
It was funny, but it was like weird. Comedy is this weird thing that sometimes the funniest shit can get you fired.
Okay.
It's like, I don't know if a lot of jobs have things like that in it. Like, I used to have the problem with, they would say, "All right, you can't curse tonight. This one's got to be clean. This is a corporate event. You can't even curse." So, like, as soon as they would tell me you can't curse, I don't know what would happen. It wasn't like I was a rebel. I didn't try to do it, But somehow what they told me not to do would accidentally happen. I'd be like, oh, fuck. Oh, shit. Why did I say fuck? I'm one of those. He's like, oh, no, I'm in trouble. And I would like feel so bad. So, but then years into my career, I was like, oh, there's a positive to this. Like I put a clip up on YouTube before anybody really had these heckler clips on YouTube. I was like pretty early on. I think mine's been up there for like 10 years. And the thing got like, it got like 1 million hits in like 6 months. And I was like, oh my God, like these people love when I lose my shit.
So that was real. Like, on that clip, I mean, it's not like you're acting, getting mad at the audience. I mean, you were really mad at this heckler and you were just laying it on this YouTube clip.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it was the whole audience. I edited it so it looked like there was a lot of funny. There was probably some really nasty shit that I took out of that video. But now I probably would have posted it without the edit. But back then you were afraid. You're like, oh, well, this could ruin my career. You used to think shit like that. Now it's different. You're like, no, this could make my career. It's got 30 million hits, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's a double-edged sword these days. Sometimes these negative things, like I said, you make them a positive. I made it an album. I realized that those people liked it so much on YouTube. It's got like 5 million hits now. So I realized, well, God, back when I had my anger, I'm like a pack rat when it comes to my comedy. I have a lot of shit on videotapes and a lot of stuff on audio recordings. So I started going through everything and I go, wow, I got a lot of me losing it moments. I'm going to make a whole album of these and I'm going to narrate them. So you like I'm bringing you to the setting. I would like explain the situation before each track. And it's still, it probably sells better than anything I've ever done. People just want to buy it. They come up to me, they go, I'm like, well, here's my comedy special, my 1 hour special. Do you want that? They're like, no. Where's the album where you're yelling at people? That's what they want. It's called When a Comedian Attacks. And they still want it. I sell it for like $5 at my show. It's probably like a $9 download somewhere on the internet on iTunes or something. But
I mean, it sounds funny. Like when Adam Sandler, gets into that yelling thing, I would think it would be hilarious having an actual comedian that did that, I mean, I know it wouldn't.
But mine were scary though. Like I wasn't just yelling at them in a funny way. Like
okay.
I was threatening them at times, saying, meet me outside.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to beat the living shit out of you. Like, it would get to that. And I'm not a tough guy, so it was, like, ridiculous. Like, even though I said I got in those fights when I was younger, like, I think I've punched somebody in the face once in my life. I'm not a tough guy, But on stage, when I would get mad, I would turn into someone who you think was going to beat the living shit out of you.
Okay. Like a Jekyll Hyde thing or whatever.
Yeah. My friend used to say that. He would go, dude, you Jekylled again. Why do you keep Jekyling? That's what he used to say. He's like, you're such a nice guy. Then a switch turns. I go, yeah, I don't know. But then I met you can ask me questions. I don't want to take you too far ahead.
I want just quick. Just who was your Did you have idols in comedy? Did you admire certain people, or was it just in general? You watch Saturday Night Live, or you watch these shows? Anybody particular that you really, admired?
Well, I mean, I guess every comedian would say Richard Pryor. I mean, I just loved Richard Pryor. I'm still to this day, and it's very hard to find a venue where you can do it. And Richard Pryor kind of did it in mainstream stand-up performances where it's like, it's almost sad. Like he brings you to these such real situations that you could almost cry and then start laughing. Like I've always been a fan of taking them on a ride and being very real and being really vulnerable. Like that's what I love about Pryor. He's so vulnerable up there.
Vulnerable in what way, Joe? Like, what do you mean vulnerable?
Like I'm trying to think of an example.
Telling personal stuff.
I can remember doing. I remember him doing a really long bit about doing cocaine and lighting himself on fire and all that kind of stuff. And like, there's a difference between comedians that are just telling jokes and there's other ones that you can like feel them. You know what I mean? Like it's the same with music. Like there's guys who are just playing and they sing nice, and there's other guys where you go, "Oh my God, that was like an emotional experience." Like I haven't seen this documentary, but I wanted to go see it because that's what all the feedback is. And my wife, I don't think, wanted to go. So I'm like, I'm going to have to go see it alone. But there's a documentary on Aretha Franklin that just came out, and it's a concert from like 1972 where she's performing at a church. And Sidney Lumet, who's like made like unbelievable movies, like I guess filmed that concert, and they didn't have computerized things back then. So he was unable to release it because the sync was off on the film. Like the audio was not synced with the video. They made a mistake, and through technology they were able to fix it. Like, and they're putting it out now, and they're saying it's like an emotional experience, and they're showing people in the church just crying when she's singing. You know,
wow, okay,
like it's so good. They're crying. It's like an emotional experience. Like I don't know. I mean, another thing through much therapy in my life and really talking about this stuff, I start to realize why I think I'm drawn towards emotional vulnerability. And I think I had some situations happen in my life, never really with my family. It was a lot of like crazy, deaths when I was young, from girlfriends' dads to girlfriends' sisters, husbands. Like I had crazy shit happen when I was younger that were like intense. And I don't know, like sometimes these things scar you when you're young and it makes you attracted to it. And I've heard comedians say that, like, I feel like Ray Romano is somebody that I feel similar to. I don't know why. You mean from
Everyone Loves Raymond, the way he is in that?
Yeah, like I like the show. I like his stand-up. And when I see him act in dramatic things, I kind of go, I feel similar to this guy, and I don't know why. And then I heard him interviewed, and he said he likes to, I don't know what the word would be, provoke emotion out of himself. Like he'll try to watch things on YouTube that are emotional. You know they're popular. Like if you look at someone in the clip will say like 9-year-old girl missing her arm makes you cry harder than you ever cried in your life, and it's so amazing. And you're like, I gotta watch this clip. Like, I love that kind of stuff. And I've heard Ray Romano say that he's into that and he seeks it. Like the most emotional versions of the national anthem. I heard he heard him say he looks for them on the internet. I'm like, so Richard Pryor, there's not many comedians that do that. What he does, that do an emotional thing. Like, so are they funny
empathetic figures? There's something about them that you kind of feel bad about, or you're just drawn, like even if they're doing serious stuff like Ray Romano, there's something in them that you just, maybe Robin Williams, I felt that for him a little bit, there's something about him that you just feel bad for him.
Something about that guy, you can see it in their eyes, the pain in their eyes. Like I think I've seeked girlfriends for that reason, and I think I've seeked friendships. Like I didn't realize till I was older. I was like, all my friends struggle from similar things. They have anxiety disorders. I have one friend whose dad abandoned them when he was like 8 years old, and didn't come back for 35 years. I had another friend whose dad was the host of Family Feud, the second host, this guy Ray Combs, he committed suicide.
Oh yeah, I remember him.
Yeah,
yep.
I became friends with his son just for that reason. I was like, I went to a comedy club and I saw the name Ray Combs on the sign-up list, and I go, "Is that the son?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I went, "Oh my God! Like I got to meet this guy." His dad was a comedian, committed suicide, and now he's doing comedy. You would think he wouldn't want to do comedy. And I met him, and then we became friends. It's like, I'm attracted to the story and trying to help, another one is Artie Lang, was one of my good friends, who was Howard Stern's sidekick, who has tremendous drug problems. And we used to live across the street from each other, and I used to work with him. I always wanted to help him, but I could just never reach him. I could just, I used to think he was so smart and so talented. And I was like, God, if this guy could get sober, he's unstoppable, but he can't get sober. And it was just like
there was no way to connect into it because he was too far, like the people with Elvis Presley, I guess they just couldn't.
No, he couldn't do it. Yeah, they want to be rebels. Like he was just like so. you go into his apartment and you're looking at John Belushi pictures. You're like, this guy loves that. He loves Sam Kinison. He wants to be rock and roll, that. And maybe that's because of, some other reason. Maybe, that, because I used to think, people would love him. I used to say, you think people love you as rock and roll? I go, you get sober, they're going to love you to an even higher level than what they loved before. You don't realize it, that you, not fucked up is even more talented than you were fucked up.
I was going to ask the question with Richard Pryor, because you always heard it was sort of a mythical thing. Oh, when he got straight, he wasn't as funny. But that's obviously not true then, after hearing what you just said, Joe. You remember hearing that stuff?
Maybe it was. Maybe there's certain guys that is true. I'm not going to say that it isn't.
Okay.
But I've seen Artie. I've seen glimpses, because I was friends with him, and where he'd call me on the phone and say, "Let's go. I need to talk. Will you meet me at a diner?" And we'd talk for 4 hours. And I had been around him on drugs so often that when he's not and he's struggling, you could tell he wasn't. And you're like, God, I love this guy. I loved you fucked up. But this guy, I love this guy even more. I'm like, but no one's ever gotten to see this guy. I'm like, you're awesome. You're so, he's so funny, but he's such a smart, the genius, just genius, so intelligent. And I just wish people could get to see that too. And he's trying to clean his act up now, and we'll see. I haven't, he's kind of pulled himself away from show business, which I think was smart. I think the hardest thing for someone with drug and alcohol problem is to keep being funny. I think you do need to pull yourself away from it, and then come back.
Let me throw some names at you. I just want to give a quick Jerry Lewis. How was it? I just want to throw some comedian names at you.
Okay. We just want words on Jerry Lewis.
Yeah, Jerry Lewis. Yeah.
Jerry Lewis.
Not much comes to mind. Not much.
I'm not a Jerry Lewis fan.
Okay.
I've watched Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis do their thing. I always thought Dean Martin was the genius to that whole thing.
Okay.
I loved what they did, but it's a team, so it's no matter what, even if the other person you think is the genius, other people thought the opposite. They thought Dean Martin was, Dean used to think, I don't get any attention. I'm the straight man and Jerry's the goofball, so everybody loves the goofball. But there's a talent to both sides. Jerry Lewis doing The Nutty Professor, I think that's genius. So that's pretty amazing. Did he write that movie and direct it? I
think he might have. I don't know 100%. What do you think, Eddie Murphy? Speaking of that.
Now, Eddie Murphy, I'm a huge fan of Eddie Murphy. Loved him on Saturday Night Live. I don't think anybody has that charisma of Eddie Murphy. But I do think there's a little bit of Eddie Murphy that's is a guy that emulated Pryor. And there's a difference between someone emulating somebody and then somebody being the original. I think Richard Pryor is the original. Eddie Murphy, to me, is a little bit of a copy of Eddie Murphy, but a way more flashy version, of Richard Pryor. It's kind of like they used to say there was Bill Hicks, and then there was Dennis Leary. That Dennis Leary was the more sellable, charismatic. Is that the word? Charismatic version,
right?
Of Bill Hicks, the more sellable version of a guy who could act and be in movies. And I think Eddie Murphy is a little bit of that, and he doesn't do stand up anymore either. Maybe that's the reason. He's more of a movie guy with a ton of charisma, super talented.
One more, I'll give you one more comedian. So you had him on your Twitter. I have to ask you on Adam Sandler's little tribute to Chris Farley.
Oh, that everybody was talking about that a few days ago. That tribute was amazing. So that's another one, and it had heart to it, So I'm gonna like it. You cried watching that because Farley was just, oh my God. I think I tweeted something about it saying my son that I cheated the age. I knew he was too young to watch Tommy Boy, but it was like I couldn't wait to show him Tommy Boy because I knew how funny I think it was. And my son loves that. My son loves Adam Sandler movies. I mean, I guess every kid goes through that age where they just want to watch Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison. I mean, my son's probably seen Billy Madison 50 times. Loves it.
Right. That early 10 to 12, 13-year-old age group, kids have that certain thing.
My brother's 9 years younger than me, and we used to love Sandler when we were younger, and Chris Farley, and we would always there was a lot of that in my household. This was a phrase yelled out a lot was you got Joe, get down here, you're missing it. There was always that. You're missing it. My brother always wants me to watch something, or my dad wants me to watch something. And my wife, it's funny because my wife's family is the opposite. I'm always like, Dad, check this out. It's hilarious. It took me 5 years of marriage to realize my wife doesn't care if she misses it. She does not want to see it.
You figure it out after the 5th year. Okay.
I don't give a shit. Show that to your brother, not to me.
All right. So now you're going through your growing pains, I guess, on your comedy routine. I guess everybody's not good when they first start anything. I'm sure Babe Ruth wasn't good when he picked up a baseball the first time, in general.
Right.
You do more, you get better at it. So when do you start hitting your stride, Joe? I know you've been doing this for a while. What, is there a turning point year when you hit like 30 or some year or something happens? I know you've been on some pretty big shows. Was there a turning point, or when did you really, start to say, hey, man, I'm getting good at this?
Well, I think back to what I said about vulnerability, I think you can't, or at least me, and what I like is the vulnerability. You can't get that vulnerable on stage until you're comfortable on stage. Mm-hmm. It's like, I can compare this to last night. I've been doing a little experiment with my podcast, which was, I do the podcast every Wednesday and I film it, and I would put the audio out, and people wanted to see the video. I would have them subscribe to this Patreon page where they could watch the episodes. And I was like, well, on Monday I'm going to stream them live on Facebook, right? Do Facebook Live, set the camera up, talk into it. Mm-hmm. And I sucked. It was just bad. And I went and looked at the comments, and all kind of mean comments are being written on there. I have a lot of they say they're comedy fans. Other people call them trolls, but they get a kick out of any format where you can stream something, because that's a place they can write comments in real fast and just shit on you over and over. Right. Right. So I realized when I shut the camera off, I'm like, boy, does that suck. And I look, and they're writing all this negative shit. And I go, you know what? I'm going to just turn the camera right to my face. I'm going to have the microphone, and I'm going to work right off of the comments and interact with you guys. And I was like 1,000% better than when I was just talking to the camera, which felt like talking alone in a room. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with going on stage. They go, oh, because even people wrote in the comments when I just was working off of the comments, they go, oh, now you're Joe. You just became you again. It takes 10 years before you're you on stage. Like you're up there, you're trying. It's like in sports, people can relate. When you're trying, you suck. When you're just letting it go, you're good. You're not worried about it. Now, when you're trying to be funny, you stink. And when you just finally go, I don't really give a shit about this as much anymore. And I would say 10 years in, about 4 years after I moved to New York City, because that's the first turn of getting better, is moving to New York City from the Philly comedy scene and now getting on stage every day of the week and starting to perfect it and starting to get on TV shows and being around a lot of other really good comedians, not like the shittier ones that are in your local scene.
Are you nervous at all on stage, Joe? When you go on TV shows at all? Or, I mean, you certainly don't look it when I was viewing some of your shows a few nights ago. I mean, you seem quite confident. I mean, is that a little bit of an act, or, I mean, are you nervous at all? Because it seems like it's something you'd be nervous about.
Well, it's weird because I do take anxiety medication now. Mm-hmm. And I've been on that for like 8 or 9 years. And, that really took all the worry out that used to drive that anger that used to happen. Mm-hmm. So when you see me on TV now, I'm actually not nervous, especially now once you've been doing it a long time, it's like getting older in life. You're not as worried about like
the small stuff,
dying or something. You're like, all right, well, I should. You start to realize a little like everyone's gonna die, so I might as well enjoy today. You know, you start to get a perspective on it. It's the same with comedy. I go, if I go bomb on TV right now after being in it for 30 years, it doesn't matter. You know, it's not going to end my career. I'll have to figure out whatever. You know, when you're newer and you're getting on Letterman for the first time, that's when you're nervous. You know, you're like, oh my God, I'm on. I don't think they're never gonna have me back again.
Right, you were older. You were older on Letterman, right? You were more established, and it was.
The first time I was nervous. Then I was not. Then I got on a second time. The second time I was older and not nervous whatsoever, and it went a lot better. I hate my first performance.
Okay, I saw them both. I mean, to me, I couldn't tell. They both look good to me. Just the regular guy looking at it, you know.
Right.
You know, it's funny because he came out at the end the same exact way with the exact same handshake. You know, it was almost like a repeat. You know, can you? Because my audience is this kind of stuff intrigues me. Just for a couple of minutes, what happens on Letterman from right when you go to the show, from the door, you walk in the door, what happens on the show? I mean, do you go in the green room or do you meet Letterman beforehand? Just give you a couple of minute insight on being on Letterman, what that's like and what you do.
Well, you should know, even before you get there, that's one of those shows, and it doesn't happen anymore, but there was a process behind it. Mm-hmm. There would be a talent coordinator that just booked the comedians on the show. That was his only job. He was the warm-up act for the show, and he booked the comedians. So he had two jobs. And he would literally cherry-pick your act. He'd submit tapes of material, and he'd go, okay, this, no to that, no to that, no to that. And then it would take a few takes before he'd go, okay, we got a set here, and now I want to come out and see you do these 6 bits, you know, for your 5-minute set on Letterman. And then he'd go, yeah. And then he'd make you go do a whole bunch of sets in a couple of nights, and he'd want to watch them all. Like he really was the mind behind it, which got me kind of mad, to be honest. My first Letterman, I thought he picked incorrectly. Now
who picked? Did Letterman pick? Or the comedy guy, the other guy?
The guy who had the job. The guy who had the job. I thought, picked a few jokes that I thought, these sound like too dirty or too young, like for, you know, that Letterman's more sophisticated. He's a smart guy, and I shouldn't be doing these sexual kind of jokes, you know, on Letterman. This is a more classy thing, you know, where they want you to wear a suit. I didn't even wear a suit, which I reject. I regret. I should have. They want you to wear a suit. Not many shows do that anymore. Like, you got to wear a suit. We would like it. They would like it if you wore a suit. That's what they would say. Mm-hmm. So you walk in. You
walk into the studio and whatever at Sullivan Theater.
You go into your green room. There's no meeting of Letterman. You know, a lot of the other shows, the guys will come in and meet you. Most of them, they do that. But David Letterman did not come in either time I did that show.
So the first time you meet him is on the TV when he walks out there and shakes your hand at the end.
Yeah. Okay. And I got a curveball thrown to me when I did Letterman the first time. I'm about 5 to 10 minutes from going out there to do it. And that same guy who handpicked all my jokes says, we're running a little long. Can you do one less joke and close on that one? And he goes, but do me a favor. If that one less joke doesn't get a big applause at the end, still do your last joke. And I go, oh my God. I go, can you give me a sign to let me know where I am with time? If I have time to finish with the last joke? And he goes, no, we don't have that. And I was like laughing. I always tell people, only in comedy to the most important situations not have what the situations that aren't important at all have. Like everywhere you do comedy, they got a light. Every club has a light that shows you got a minute left, you know? And almost every TV show has like a 1 minute light. And then when you got 30 seconds light, this thing will be blinking and and then there's a guy going, wrap it up. Right. They're like, no, we don't have that. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I gotta guess in the moment. And what's really hard is when you do stand up on television versus doing it live in front of audiences at theaters and clubs. They clap at different places. Like they'll clap at the premise and then you'll do the punchline and it won't work because the premise got a big laugh. It's like weird.
Okay.
So like I have to guess when they're going to clap, and it's hard to guess because it's a different version of what you're doing every night. You're not on TV every night. You're in clubs every night.
Yeah, right. Oh,
so
wow.
if you watch that Letterman set for my first one, I guessed incorrectly. I could have still done the last joke.
Okay, so that was one short. Okay.
Yeah, when I did one short, I tried to behave and do what I should do. Oh, I don't want to go long on my time. I walk off, and he goes, you could have done one more. I was like, I want to kill you, dude. I want to kill you.
What was the one that you didn't do? Can you tell us?
And it was this was the one I didn't think it was right for Letterman. It was a joke about this Latino girl that I was dating, that how they're too sexual. You know, I couldn't keep up. I go, this girl would stretch before we were about to have sex. I said, that's a good sign when you look up and she's doing this. And I would like pull my leg backwards, and I would pull my other leg backwards. I go, then she put a mouthpiece in, and I would put the mouthpiece in, and I'd shake my head around. And I go, get out from behind the couch. I ain't going to hurt you, puppy. Right? Like that was the punchline. Like I went and hid.
Yeah.
And it would have killed. It would have definitely got an applause break. And, but it was dirty, and I didn't think it was Letterman. It wasn't right. That was the one I was supposed to do. He told me not to do it, and then he said I should have did it. So I was like, if you would have never said anything, I would have just done it, idiot. I ran that set. You know, often you run a set to practice it. You run those sets to the point where they don't work anymore in comedy clubs. Like
it looks like it's too routine, or you just don't have.
Yeah, how I said, being vulnerable works for me, and when I'm not vulnerable, it doesn't work. Like when I was talking into the camera, doing a FaceTime video and trying to be like talk show TV Joe, I suck. But then when I just hold the camera and go, what the fuck was I doing? I suck at that. I'm more interesting, you know?
Right.
It's like, I always say you need the interesting and you need the funny. It can't be one or the other. It's got to be both. So
the second time, I think it's like 6 or 7 years later, is it the same routine? You walk in, you go in that green room, that comedy guy talks to you or whatever, and then you get same thing? Or
I think he loses the job.
Oh, he loses the job, that guy now. Okay.
He loses the job. Something came up in the news a lot, and this is before Me Too, but it came up that he wasn't putting any women on Letterman, and he ended up losing his job as the talent coordinator. They still let him do the warm-up, and now I get in. Even though he had once told me Letterman, that's what it was. After the first set, and I tried to get a second set when he still had the job. He goes, Dave didn't like your first set.
Really?
And I was pissed because I'm like, you picked them all. You know, you picked the jokes. I had even said that to you, and you said, no, Dave's going to love this stuff, and now Dave doesn't like it, and now I get the blame. So,
and you got to trust the guy's being honest with you that he really didn't like it. He's not just saying that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I finally get back on again through a different booker. And he's still there. I thought it was funny. He was doing the warm-up, and he came over. He was like, great set. And I was like so much more relaxed on the second one.
Okay.
I wore jeans on the second one. Nobody does that. I came out with a sports jacket and a shirt, but not even a full button down. I had like 3 buttons and jeans. Like nobody does that.
Well, actually, they had a great intro for you on that. I don't know what it was. There was like the Georgie Girl theme, or I don't know. They had some kind. No, the Tom Jones. I don't know. There was some theme, and you came out dancing.
It's not unusual. Yeah.
Yeah. You look
a connection to my life. My first, when I used to perform when I was a kid, when I was like 5. We have a home movie of me performing. I used to pretend I was Tom Jones, and my grandma even then comes over and goes, stop it. Like I was always embarrassing her. Anytime I was performing, I was embarrassing her. And she goes, stop it, on the home video. So I've always had a connection with It's Not Unusual. That was It's Not Unusual by Tom Jones.
Did you request that, or did Schaefer, they just...
Yeah, you get to...
Oh, you get request?
About Letterman. You get to request, and the band learns it. The first time I came out to any what's that song by Journey. Any way you want it.
Yeah. Right.
Any way you want it by Journey, the first one.
Right. That looked good too. That
on
good.
Saxophone, if you watch it, it's on saxophone.
Okay. When you walk out the second time, you give a little point to Schaefer, and then you give a little acknowledgement to Letterman. You did actually. You did look a lot looser. Now that
there's a backstory to I think the first one. I do this weird point. That's the other thing that guy fucked me up with. It's like, all you got to do is give me a lot of shit to do, because I have ADD, and I wasn't on meds back then on the first one. So you give me, you give me instruction, I'm screwed, because I have attention deficit. So I'm about to go out. He tells me to maybe do one less joke, and then I just remembered, because you reminded me. He goes, and make sure you acknowledge Dave before you start your act. He goes, hit your mark and look at Dave and wave and then begin. Right. So if you notice, I hit my mark and I'm looking, and Dave's not looking at me. I'm waiting for him to look at me, and then I go, I give a point, which looks ridiculous. And I remember a comedian made fun of me. He goes, what was that point? He made at Dave. I go, they told me to point at him.
I thought that point looked good, actually. It looked kind of cool, like a quick point to him, like you're the guy,
Well, you might be talking about the second one, because the second one I come out and I'm dancing to
the second one I'm talking about. The second one.
And I go, bah! I go like that. Yeah. That's a different point.
That's a different point. Okay.
The bad point.
The bad point. to notice
that. The second one was me actually being relaxed and having a good time. And it's that's a metaphor for life and show business. I mean, I always quote this, but I used to do this podcast called Fixing Joe, where the guest would give me advice, whatever my problems were, or the listeners would give me advice. And I had Craig Ferguson on as a guest, the guy who used to host the Late Late Show after Letterman, right, on CBS, the Scottish guy, Craig Ferguson. So I have him on my podcast. Business. I still got you, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, he goes, the key to show business is, it's like the movie Shawshank Redemption. I go, what do you mean? He goes, don't you remember that movie? He goes, Morgan Freeman is trying to get paroled the whole movie. And he's trying so hard in all his parole meetings with the parole council,
right,
or whatever.
I remember it. Yep.
And then at the end of the movie, he's so used to getting rejected that he's old, so he doesn't give a shit if he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. That he just basically goes, I think the guy asked him, do you regret what you did? And he goes, regret's a strong word. He basically, to summarize it, he basically says to the guy, go fuck yourself, right? And they stamp it paroled. Like, when he finally didn't give a shit, he nailed it, paroled. And it's like, oh my God, he goes, that's show business. Like, you finally don't give a shit. You're good. Don't worry about
it. Yeah. Can you? I was doing some research, and you do a great Rocky, and you were telling a few lines about how important things are, going the distance, and I can't believe how great of a Rocky you do. Can you do that, Joe? And I mean, that's a great philosophy too. That's what hit me, the philosophy of life, and that one, going the distance, is something I always remembered from that show. And you do it incredibly.
Sure. Well, I mean, I'll give you the backstory.
Yeah, the backstory.
To that. What you're saying is my dad. I said my dad never mentored me. He didn't tell me to go back and play on the baseball team where you're not allowed to quit the school play. That I'm Italian. I grew up near Philly, so I chose Rocky as a mentor, because I was like, my dad's not giving me advice, but Rocky is giving advice that's amazing in every one of these movies. And the one you're talking about, the first movie, which is Going the Distance, when he goes to the ring, he sees that there's a picture hanging of him coming off of the ceiling that's the wrong color trunks. He says to the promoter that the trunks are wrong, and the promoter says, does it really matter, Rocky? I'm sure you'll give him a great show. Right? He's like, just go home and get some sleep.
Right.
And I always say, and I say it to the audience, they go, Rocky was smart. He was like a dumb, smart guy. He realized right then, I don't have a shot. And then his head goes down, and that music that's slow comes on. it on the walk. Oh, I don't really want to win. I just want to go to the distance, right? So he lays. I'll do the voice for you, I promise. So he lays down with Adrian, and he goes, "Yo, I can't win, but I don't even really want to win. You know, what I really want to do is go the distance. You know, because no one's ever gone the distance with Creed. I mean, if that bell rings and I'm still standing, I'm going to know for the first time of my life that I'm not a bum from the neighborhood, right?" So, like, I got chills just then when I said that. I don't know why. I quote Rocky, and I get goosebumps on my arm. And, you know, it's true that, once again, vulnerability, Rocky, we all know now, took a lot of those themes from that Chuck Wepner guy's real life who fought Muhammad Ali and went the distance.
Right.
And that but Rocky was smart enough to realize when he was watching Chuck Wepner go the distance with Ali, oh, this is pretty interesting. Like, this guy's going to get remembered for just not getting knocked out. You know, he's going to go the distance with the greatest boxer of all time, you know, and that's going to mean something, and that's all he wants to do. And then I talk about how I use that metaphor in life that, like, I always say, if I never have to get a day job, you might have never heard of me. But you know what? I'm making a living doing stand-up, and I'm not going down. I'm not quitting. Like, this is what I do. And come and see me live, because you're going to see I'm pretty good at it. And I'm vulnerable as hell. It's the feeling when you're up there. And not a lot of comedians are doing that, you know, and it's starting to come around in our careers now. You're seeing these Netflix specials that they're getting notoriety because of some serious thing that's in the special. You know, that's happened with a few different ones in the last year.
I don't know, the goal. I mean, you're not A-list, I guess I'll call it. You know, you're like the next one in there, I guess. Is it still possible?
I don't know. I'm 51, so you don't know if there's even a chance. But
I know you got to keep going the distance like Rocky, and then I guess you got to
go the distance. Mm-hmm. But I always say that, like, life is part of it. Like, I don't know if a lot of comedians I know that really make it far are very narcissistic. Mm-hmm. So they don't care if they're being a shitty husband or a shitty dad, and they get divorced a whole bunch of times, and, you know, like, that it's a 50-50. And that's one of the reasons when I lived in LA and my friends thought I was crazy, because I lived in LA. I had a development deal with NBC to make my own show. They ended up not making the show, but giving me the money, you know, for the holding deal. And I told my roommates that were all comedians also, I go, I'm moving back. And they're like, why? And I go, because I'm never going to meet like a normal girl out here. They're all actresses. They're all in the movie business. They're all nuts. I want to have a wife and kids. I want to have a normal life too. I want a full life. So I'm moving back, you know, and they thought, like I said, they thought I was nuts. And 3 months after moving back, I met my wife, and we've been married, you know, going on 13 years, and we have 2 kids, and we live in the burbs, and she's a doctor, and
sounds good.
You know, I got a good life. So it's like, I always say, maybe I'm not Dave Chappelle, but, you know, if you weigh it evenly, maybe I am. You know what I mean?
What is then I want to talk about your mental health tour coming up, because that really is I find very interesting. The what's a typical day in the life of a comedian? I mean, do you wake up late and you could do whatever you want to do? You hang with your kid, then you got the gig at night. I mean, what's a typical day in a life? Maybe
if you're a really, really rich comedian, that you can sleep late and you got somebody taking care of the family in the morning. But we don't have that. I mean, I wake up every day. I wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I help my wife. I walk the dog. I help her get the kids ready. I take my daughter to the bus stop. Then I have to drive my son to school. Then I go work out. I always work out like for 45 minutes to an hour, and then I start my day, which is, open the computer. It's a lot of social media. It's a lot of rearranging the website. It's promoting your gigs that you have that week and trying to sell tickets, because it's all about who can sell tickets. That's all they care about now. It's not about how funny you are. about how many tickets you can sell because your social media numbers are higher. So that's kind of, it's kind of why we came up with this mental health comedy tour. Is I was already talking about my mental health a ton. I did my first comedy special. It was called Medicated when I first started taking medication. And a lot of my stand-up was about it. And then I met this guy, Preston Gitlin, who was like more of a business guy that really wanted to dive into comedy. And I started mentoring his comedy a little bit. And we came up with this mental health comedy tour, and we're taking it to different cities. And we connected with this nonprofit company called Twaloha is their acronym.
Like Aloha, but Twaloha.
Yeah, it's TWLOHA.com is their website, but it stands for To Write Love on Her Arms. And they're a nonprofit for mental health and suicide prevention, and they have a huge social media following. And these are my first shows on the tour, are at the Punchline in Philadelphia this week. So I'm doing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and all the shows are raising money for their nonprofit. And then we're doing a huge one in New York City on May 30th, connected to the nonprofit also at the comic strip in New York City. And they can just go to joematarese.com to buy tickets to come to that. But hoping to, I'm kind of connecting them to everything, even my Patreon, where people can pay to watch my podcast. I'm giving half of the money to the nonprofit. Now, it's like what I said to you before. I like helping people, so it's like it keeps me connected. I need that connection. If I have no connection, if I'm doing comedy and it feels like it's for no reason, I lose something. But something about when there's heart behind it.
Right.
I feel like I deliver more.
On the mental health tour, is it the charity part of it, or is it in the actual show you're changing your show up to talk more about those issues, or is it just your regular comedy show? But it depends on the event. Like the one in Philadelphia, the 5 shows in Philadelphia, I'm not really changing my material. I happen to have mental health material, but I have a lot of other stuff too that I'll be doing, and it's just the regular stand-up show, and then we're raising money at the shows, after the shows, with the different merchandise we're selling, fundraising buckets, all kind of different things are going to go on at those shows. But the one in New York City on May 30th has like a 25% TED Talk piece to it, where there's 4 comedians. There's me, another amazing comedian, this guy Dan Natterman, who's been on Letterman more than me, and he's been on Conan a bunch of times, and did better than me on America's Got Talent. We were in the same year. And he's hilarious. And it's me, him, this girl, Chloe LeBranch, and Preston, who I said earlier was the business guy, and he's hosting the shows, and he's a newer comedian on it. And we all suffer from different mental illnesses. So that show is like going to run the gamut. Whoa.
And then at the end, we come back up, and we kind of get serious, and we do a Q&A with the crowd, and we give a little bit of a 5-minute story, each of us, our how we got better, basically. Maybe take them to our worst part of our life, and then how we transformed and how we got, better mentally. Because we didn't really want to punch down. That was the big thing, especially with the nonprofit. They're like, you're not going to be making fun of mental illness. We're like, no. Like, Chloe's sober. And like, she really gets into trying to help other people stay sober. So, and I'm somebody that wants to teach people about anxiety disorders and talk about my anger. I want to help, so we're kind of looking at it as a 25% like little motivational TED Talk at the end of it. And then the owner of the nonprofit is going to get up and speak also. He'll probably speak at the beginning.
How important, Joe, is comedy in life? Just not only for people with mental issues, but just in general. How important would you rank comedy and humor?
Jeez, it's the same with, I think, music and comedy, or basically all art forms. They're so healing. Like, I remember when Chris Rock hosted Saturday Night Live once, and they were upset because he talked about 9/11. And all I thought was, why are they being upset? Like, comedy heals. It doesn't hurt you over again unless you talk about it in a mean way, like I said just now, punching down. He wasn't punching down. He's enlightening you. He's making you, he's helping us heal. You know, like when I told you I had anxiety and I would comedy, like it makes it go better. It makes you feel better. Same with hearing good music or seeing good movies or seeing a good play. Like, it takes you out of life. If life is stressing you, you need to get away. You need that. I always say you need, what's the word? You need to do nothing to enjoy the stress of life. So, like, we need these getaways where our brain can just not worry about our life and just watch somebody make you laugh. It just takes you out of that stress, you know, because we all have it.
It's yeah. I mean, it's something I always, you know, I don't think there's any other answer. You know, comedy, music, and the arts. I mean, that just, you know, that just seems like it.
And sex. And sex.
Well, yeah. You got to put that in. You got to put that in.
You
got to put that in.
You got to have a major problem to sidetrack and think about the stress of life in the middle of sex. Then you really need some help. You're going.
I wish I had.
You're having sex with your wife, and you're going, "Oh my God, it's snowing! I just shoveled." Like you're not.
I wish I could have your comedy routine now. I mean, I'm getting into this with your humor, John. I'm gonna, well, a couple more things, then I'm going to wrap up with my final segment, which I call hit and miss. But what advice, Joe, would you give? You gave a lot of advice on the show, but is there anything else that advice you'd give to an aspiring comic? I'll call him.
Hit and miss, did you say?
Yeah, I'll tell you about it in a second, but it's a word association, which I always end my podcast on.
Well, I would think, I mean, just from knowing what I said in this podcast, I could tell that this is I don't want to pat myself on the back. I'm going to pat you on the back. And I just started doing that in like the last year. When I have a good show, I thank the audience because I say, I don't know if you guys realize that I don't have a good show if you're not good. Like I said, I go, do you ever watch tennis when the guy like puts his hand against his racket to like, thank everybody at the U.S. Open? I go, comedians should do that. And I like hit the microphone with my hand and I go, because you got, like just now, you're interviewing so good that it made me, like I said, relax and give a good interview. So my number one advice, and I remember hearing Diana Ross say this, when she sings, she really looks at the crowd. You need to really look at the people and like really work on being present and being connected, because when you're out of your own head and you're just connected with them, it's not a performance. That's when you're at your best.
Ah, okay.
That would be my advice.
Okay, great.
And another one is, if someone is shitty in the front row and they're distracted or doing something, you don't need to look at them. Like, don't look at the person who's not into you. Look at the person who's laughing their ass off and thinks you're the greatest comedian they've ever seen, and they're in a good mood, because that's going to center you and make you the best version of you. You know, it's like, don't marry somebody that makes you a worse version of you. Marry somebody who makes you a better you. You know, or be friends with people that make you the best version of you. Don't be friends with people that you feel like shit around. I mean, that's you have that ability. That's what's great about life. You get to select who you're going to be around the most. So that's great advice for comedians. Just they're always there. There's certain people that just, you know, they're entertainable, and there's other people that are just like, you know, what am I going to do? This guy is wasted before he got here. He's sleeping in the front row. I'm going to stop looking at him.
So when you're upstage looking at people, and when we see the comedians looking, you're looking at the people that are into it, that are like, yeah, okay, and they're laughing, and then you look at the next guy that's into it. So that's what's going on up there. Okay.
It's like, I'll give you a little honesty behind comedy, because you liked it with Letterman. My first special, Medicated, we had an audience coordinator, and they're very expensive. You know, They fill the audience with people, and then you can actually pick the type of people you want in your audience. You can because you're paying them. And I said, I don't need you to really pick specific kind of people for the audience, but I would like a certain type of people in the front row. I go, we got 10 seats here in the front. Can you make that all people that are between like 35 and like 50 that have kids? I just want them to be parents. So it'll just help me a lot, because I got a lot of material about being a parent in that first special. So and then I'm literally on stage and I go, so you guys got kids? And they're like, no. Are you guys married? No. I'm like, oh my God. This lady ripped me off. She didn't even do her one job. And they put people that I asked in the front. Like, gosh. So, I basically got a normal crowd, Thank God they were amazing. They were really great when I did my special. But I tried to cheat the process. And I got it right in my face.
But it still worked out, though, so you got lucky a little.
Yeah. When are you going to be able to pick out what you want in your audience, I thought, let's go for it. It's costing us $4,000 to get this lady to do this job. Yeah, do it. Nope.
How many times has that happened in life in general where, look, sounds perfect, the greatest plans, this is going good, and then someone messes up and it doesn't happen, It seems to happen a lot.
Almost every time. These people that shit on me all over the internet, I'll have everything set up, my studio, the lighting, everything, boom, 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 and one wire wasn't in the correct spot, and it just wasted. The same with my comedy specials. I remember we had to hire some guy who could take the buzz out of the sound. I'm like, how is there a buzz in the sound? There's a guy walking around with headphones on who's in charge of the sound. He didn't hear it? He's got headphones on. I'm like, I'm crazy. That's what it's definitely on the list for the mental health comedy tour. OCD. I'm a perfectionist, man. I like things a certain way. I know when people try to get mad at me, and they'll go, dude, I can't even get mad at you. You were right. They go, oh my God, you're right. I want to get mad, but your note is correct. And I'm like, I know. I'm very good at finding flaws. Get that from my dad.
Okay. Joe, this is the last segment. I call it Hit and Miss, which is my little word association, first thing or two that come to your mind. I'm going to throw out some things to you here. This is how I really find out what my guests are about, So this is kind of the hard part of it all. Are you up for this? Is this all right?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Favorite color? Start off with the tough ones.
Gray.
Gray?
Gray.
Okay.
You're asking my favorite color. I'll go with now. Favorite color now is gray. I seem to be painting a lot of walls gray these days.
Okay. So that changes that color then. Depends on what's going on. So that's a changeable thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you were in a foxhole other than a family member, Joe, who would be in there with you?
Oh, geez. I'll take a sober Artie Lang.
Okay. That's good. If you were on a deserted island and you could bring 2 musical CDs or whatever they call them now with you on this deserted island, what would they be?
Oh, boy. Jeez. You're going to have to go at 2 extremes. I've been listening to a lot of Django Reinhardt. I don't even know if you'll know who this is.
No, I don't.
This jazz guitar. He's like a jazz guitarist from the 30s, and he only could play with 2 fingers. His other 2 fingers on his hand were messed up.
Wow!
So he can only play. They call him 2-finger lightning. He's his music's so relaxing. I love listening to all this finger picking jazz from the 30s. I'd bring that.
Okay.
And then let's see, we're going to need a complete opposite there. What else? Oh, God. We'll go opposite. I'll have AC/DC with me.
Okay.
So I can pick an exact album. We'll pick Back in Black because I just every once in a while I just need to hear rock and roll ain't noise pollution.
Okay. You got to let it out once in a while, right? You got to shake it up.
Yeah.
Favorite movie?
Rocky.
Okay. I always thought, Joe, I liked 1, 2, and 3. 4 I thought was okay with the Russian thing. But if he would have just stopped at 1, I thought 1 was like the complete genius. You know, I said, man, if he would have just stopped at 1, it would have been like unbelievable. It'd be like, this guy's incredible. Yeah. I thought they lost a little bit each one up, even though I thought 2 was pretty good. But it wasn't like Godfather 1 and 2 where they're both great. That's just my opinion. I thought 1 was unbelievable.
Yeah. Rocky's the best. The first Rocky goes up as the best movie of all time for me. I just think it has everything that I want out of a movie.
And that climatic finish, you know, with the Adrian thing, you know, that was pretty amazing, you know. She's running through that crowd, you know. I always try to picture me like Rocky, you know, with my girlfriend coming at me, you know, this kind of thing. Favorite actor? Favorite actor? Or actress? Actress.
Favorite actor or actress? Ooh, geez. It's so hard. It's like if you give me a time period, like a live bed. There's so many. I always say
post 1980.
Favorite comedian.
Post 1980.
Like someone post 1980. Like,
yeah.
Oh God. There's so many different ones. Like I love. You're gonna think I love John Cusack.
Okay.
I tend to like people that remind me of myself for some weird reason. There could be a weird reason I connect it. Mm-hmm. I connect with John Cusack. I connect with Rocky, with Sylvester Stallone in the first Rocky movie, because he's this tough guy that is, you know, unresolved, you know, and that struggle that he's going through. And I just really relate to who he is, like smart but dumb at the same time. That's definitely me. So we'll have to put Stallone on my list there.
Okay.
Even though Rocky's since 1976.
Did you see it when it first came out?
I did, yeah.
You did? Okay.
In the drive-in in the rain with my parents.
Okay, yeah. I was, I saw that too. That was like a breakthrough when I saw that thing. I was like, whoa. Yeah, he wasn't too big either, you know. He wasn't a big dude. I mean, physically, but not height-wise, you know.
No.
Yeah. What's the most famous person you ever met? Or who is the most famous person you ever met, I should say?
Oh, man.
Or who's some of them?
Let me think. Jesus.
I know you met Letterman, so he's got to be up there, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I guess I met Letterman. Most famous, though. Let's think. Big actor. Who the hell have I met? Oh, God. This is terrible.
You should meet Stallone, you know, one day.
I never met Stallone. I would love to meet Stallone. I've never met De Niro. I've never met Ray Liotta. I've never met Scorsese. God, who the hell have I met that's big? I guess I've been around Chris Rock, and you know, I've been around these guys. Dave Chappelle. I'm you know, he would know my name if you said my name to Dave Chappelle. There's a lot of comedians, like big comedians, that I know. Okay, but I'm trying to think of like movie actors who I've met,
or anybody.
I'm coming up blank. I'm trying to think of athletes too, like big athletes. I'm trying to think of, and like you know, Lenny Dykstra. Okay. I roasted Lenny Dykstra once.
You what?
I roasted him once.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I got hired to do a roast.
He's roastable, right?
Yeah, he wanted to kick my ass.
I'm sure.
He couldn't take the jokes. He wanted to fight.
I could see that. Well, we'll get back to this if something hits. It's no big deal.
Oh man, I can't.
How about if you had to meet?
I met Franco Harris.
Okay, the miracle catch. You know.
Yeah.
If you had to meet one person, who would it be? You know, just Joe. You can meet anybody tomorrow, and we're going to have you meet him. Who would the guy or lady be?
Oh, that's a great one. Who do I just idolize? Well, you know, Stallone. I would love to meet Stallone just because I have such a connection with that Rocky movie. You know, so that would be amazing. Scorsese. I would love to meet Martin Scorsese. If we can bring Richard Pryor back, I would love to be able to meet Pryor and be around him. You know, be around like just the ultimate genius at what I do for a living. I got to meet Cosby once. I forgot to tell you that. Yeah, I met Cosby and talked to him for 45 minutes once.
How was that?
That's a pretty big star.
How was he?
He was incredible.
We heard a lot of stuff after that wasn't good, but how was he at that point in his life? Great advice. You know, funny guy, normal guy.
Probably one of the coolest moments in my comedy career. I went with my dad and my cousin to see Cosby perform at the Apollo in New York City. And my cousin had backstage passes because he knew this girl that used to work for Bill Cosby. So we go backstage and we're in a line and it's just like a quick meet and greet. And my cousin, when he shakes Cosby's hand, he says something to him like, I'm a motivational speaker. I'd like to ask you a few questions about, you know, kids and how you speak with kids. And Cosby goes, he must have known that, like, and I think he enjoys being that grandfather and like comedian. And he said, and my cousin said, we're both comedians because my cousin was as a motivational speaker and a comedian. And he pointed it out because we're both comedians. And then Cosby looks off to the right and goes, set some chairs up on the stage and I'll get back to you guys. Let me do this quick meet and greet. And he goes over and signs and then they all leave. And he comes out onto the stage and sits in a semicircle with my dad, me, my cousin, and him.
Wow.
Just us. Huh. And he literally did like a roundtable discussion with us for 45 minutes. And I still remember this because I used to use it when I would teach comedy. But I said to Cosby, he goes, well, no, because he literally goes, what do you guys want to know? What would you like to know? That's what he said. And we're like, and I go, because there was a moment in his show that night where he got pissed. I could tell because there was sound off stage behind the curtain, like somebody was talking back there way loud, and it was distracting him. Who worked there, and he had a lavalier mic on his face, and he just he takes that off, puts it on a chair, or he says into it, give me a second. He says to the crowd, he takes it off, puts it on the chair, walks off stage. He's gone for like 3 minutes of just dead air. And he comes back, puts the mic back on, sits in his chair and goes, now, where was I? Right? And I laughed because I'm a comedian. I just thought that was such a weird moment that it made me laugh. And my dad, when he was next to me, goes, shh, shh. And I go, Dad, he's a comedian. I'm not going to throw him by laughing. He'll be fine. Right. So after the show, I said, I got to ask you a question. It looked like you got mad while you were on stage. I said, you did something so much more professional than how I handle that. I go, I used to let the crowd see my anger and I could lose the room if they saw I was pissed at some noise or something like that. I go, you took the mic off and walked away. No one knew what happened. And you came back and continued. And he just started cursing, which was classic. Cosby cursed a lot off of the stand-up back. He's like
cursing to you and your little family.
Yeah, he's like the fucking this fucking Apollo is a piece of shit. I'm doing a terrible Cosby. He's like, but the motherfuckers,
really
fucking sound, and then he's cursing, and I go, yeah, how do you channel? And channel yourself. I go, because sometimes, this is before I was ever on meds, I go, sometimes I'm in a really bad mood and I got to do comedy. And it's hard for me if I'm in a bad mood. When I'm in a great mood, it's easy. And he goes, I want you to get my book, Cosmetology. He goes, don't buy it. Go to a library or a bookstore and pull it off the shelf and read chapter 11. He told me what chapter to read. He goes, there's a story there that I think will help you. So literally, of course, like a day later, I go to a bookstore and I find the book and I pull it off and I read that chapter. And it was like incredible advice about something that really happened to him. And it's kind of a long story, so I don't really want to, but I want to tell it on your podcast. If I could tell it in a quick way, but basically it was about him not thinking he belonged at this really good club when he was starting out, and he got flown to Chicago to do it, and he got introduced as this big star, and he's this huge up-and-comer, ladies and gentlemen, Bill Cosby, right? And he goes on stage and does his set and doesn't do well, right? He comes off stage. He goes into the green room. He's taking his suit off. He tells the owner of the club, I'm going to fly back home. I'm not ready for your club. I'm not good enough. I'm sorry I wasted your time and the money that you gave me. I'll save my money. I'll save up money and I'll pay you back the money that you spent flying me out here. And the owner looks at him and he goes, you're right. You didn't do very well. That was not a great performance. He goes, but can you do me a favor? When you go back to the hotel to check out, can you get Bill Cosby to come back and do the second show? He goes, because I don't know who you are, but I want Bill Cosby. That's who I hired, right? And it like resonated. It resonated with Cosby, right? He was like, oh, I kind of get what he's saying. And it's funny because it's similar to what I was saying to you earlier, where there's the trying too hard you, and then there's the you who's just letting it all hang out. So Cosby comes, he still thought he was going to quit, but he comes back and he does the second show, right? And the announcer from the back goes, ladies and gentlemen, Bill Cosby. Now Cosby from the back of the room goes, what about Up and Comer? You said he's yelling this in the audience. You said I was an up-and-comer the first show, and everybody starts laughing, right? And he's like, what are you talking about? Oh, no, I'm not an up-and-comer. What's that? You can only say nice things. And everybody's laughing, and he's saying all this shit. He goes on stage. He does a totally different 20-minute set, just all off the top of his head, in and out of his material, having a good time, completely fucking around, and gets like almost a standing ovation. And he comes off, and the guy comes up to him and he goes, all right, it's good to see you, Bill Cosby. I'm glad you came back for the second show. So, like, it's amazing. I'm glad you made me tell that story because it really, I got those little chills on my arms again. It's like, it's so about, like, being that. And it's like, I did it last night when I was trying to do the podcast, and then I just said, fuck it, let me just talk into this camera and be me, and it worked.
What a great lesson in life. Just be yourself, you know? Just
be you. I mean,
you.
That's right. That's all you can do, and no one can ever be you. So if there's only one, be you.
Right.
Really hard to do. It takes years.
Hey, were you, I got to ask this, Joe, and then we're almost, I got a few more of these questions, these hit and miss questions. Were you disappointed after we heard about what happened with Cosby and, the latest things that he got in trouble for? Yeah.
I was.
Okay.
I was, because I have like my backdrop here for my podcast, and I have all kind of memorabilia on my wall. And when you asked about like comedy albums, he was the guy I listened to when I was young. I had the best of Bill Cosby, and I listened to himself, and I used to just watch Cosby, and I loved him. And when I saw him that night at the Apollo, it was way before all of this stuff. And my God, he was doing material I knew by heart, and I was still laughing. Like, he was just so good. So yeah, it sucks when somebody you idolize and is an icon to you and goes on to do, I loved the Cosby Show growing up, and he was an amazing comedian. It sucks.
I saw him once. It was
a fucking nut.
Yeah. You really don't know what's going on, I guess, with people like away from, their profession or whatever.
Unfortunately, in art, the more the genius, a lot of times the more the crazy.
Right. Without the crazy, you may not have that genius up there. It's kind of a strange kind of thing. Like, yeah. All-time baseball infield. You're a baseball player. All-time baseball infield team.
Oh, man, you're asking awesome questions.
I could go back to 1920, or you could go back to 1970 if it's easier.
Who's my infield? Okay, well, gosh.
I'm not going outfield. There's too many. First. Who? Pete Rose?
All right, Pete Rose is playing first.
Whoa. Okay.
Okay. Let's see who I got at second base. This is an amazing second baseman. There's so many different ones. I love Manny Trio because I'm a Phillies guy. Manny Trio was second base.
He had that snap throw, right? He had that little snap throw from the ear, right? He had that quick throw.
Yeah, it was like a rocket. We used to do it growing up. We'd be like, throw it as hard as you can, 2 feet. Shortstop.
You better not say Larry Boa. I'm only kidding. Yeah.
No. I was like, do I say Ozzie Smith? Do I say Derek Jeter? Who else is up there as great? Who's your greatest shortstop?
Well, from what I've seen, I guess I have to go with Jeter.
Jeter.
Yeah, I'd probably have to go with him.
like Jeter. I like Jeter
because of his hitting.
That he just never been. Not much dirt ever came out on the guy. He stayed with one team. He was just. He wore the captain well. You know what I mean? He was just someone amazing that wasn't a shithead also. Seemed like a good guy.
All right, third base.
Third base, Jesus. Mike Schmidt.
That's what I was going to think. Yeah. Even though you're a Philly fan, that's a legitimate pick. I was going to
say Greg Nettles, and then I went Mike Schmidt.
Yeah, he had some numbers, He put the numbers up along with the fielding. Catcher.
Well, I'm a huge Harry Callis fan, so I loved Harry saying Michael Jack Schmidt.
Yeah. A pun off the other Jack, right? I was always thought that. Jack blank, Catcher.
And then you want a catcher?
Yeah, I want a catcher.
A great catcher, Jesus. There's Johnny Bench. You know what? I love Mike Piazza. I was just talking about him lately. What an amazing story that the guy, if his dad didn't pull strings, he probably would have never made it into pro baseball. And he becomes this unbelievable hitting catcher. And then, I met him in person. You said we were going to come up with who did I meet?
Right.
Athletes. I met Piazza at this NIAF, at this National Italian American Foundation, this huge, I don't know what you would call that. They're an organization. And I went to this big black tie dinner in Washington, D.C., and I had to do stand-up at the black tie dinner, and Piazza was in the front row. And I started doing I started doing Harry Callis, the Phillies announcer, going off on Piazza when the Phillies would play the Dodgers. And I love Piazza. And then I hung out with him and had a few drinks with him later with my dad. And
okay, that's cool.
There's certain moments when you get to do it with your dad. It was like meeting Cosby with my dad was amazing. I went to see Billy Crystal's 700 Sundays on Broadway with my dad, and the whole play was about a father and son, and there's just certain things, and it's awesome. I love getting to share things with my dad. He's still around, and I love that. We're really close.
Well, I got to ask you this with the segue from Rose. Do you think he should be in the Hall of Fame? That's some half say yes, half seem to say no.
No, I mean, I'm going to say that he's had more shitty things in the last year come out. I was supposed to roast Pete Rose. I was all excited, then all that weird shit came out about him dating teenagers when he was an older guy. It was just weird, and I was just he just got so much tainted stuff all over him, but. Just a hell of a baseball player.
Oh yeah,
just unbelievable. And I'm a Phillies fan, so he was just really fun to watch. And I'm always telling my son to watch Pete Rose. I go, why don't you run when you get walked? Run to first base. You should do that. I always try to get him to do it.
Yeah,
he won't.
Yeah. Well, that's a tough one for a kid. It's like you're probably thinking you're showing off or something, But it worked for Rose, I mean. It definitely worked. I heard first.
Pitchers now too, or no pitchers?
Give me a righty and a lefty. You ask.
God,
I got to go with both.
I'm gonna have to go. I'll have to go Steve Carlton from the
That's
left.
a good pick. Yes.
Steve Carlton, who's my favorite righty pitcher. Jesus.
And he never talked to the press. I always loved that.
I was going to say Rivera, but he's a lefty.
Well, he's a reliever. Rivera was a righty. He was a righty.
I always loved Ron Guidry. Is he a lefty?
He's a lefty, yes.
He's a lefty, yeah. Let's think, geez, who are my favorite pitchers? Seems like everybody I always loved. I used to imitate. It's like certain pitchers you would imitate growing up. I liked some of those weird sidearm guys, like Ken Tekulve. Remember that guy? Was he righty?
I think he is. I think he is, yeah. Yeah, okay.
With that weird sidearm pitch, I love that guy. Like Louis Tiant.
Yeah. The little turnaround move with the head up on a dramatic thing.
Was he a righty?
He was a righty, yes. Okay.
And then Kurt Schilling.
Okay, he was a righty.
He's a righty.
Yeah, he was tough.
Yeah, Kurt Schilling when he was on the Phillies.
Could Babe Ruth play today?
What?
Could Babe Ruth play today?
Say it one more time.
Babe Ruth, the great Bambino, could he play ball today if you put him in today right now? Could he play today?
Oh, Babe Ruth. Oh, my God. Probably not. No. You can't have a guy that's that slow, like hobbling around.
That's interesting, isn't it? That you know.
Well,
could Lou Gehrig play?
Maybe he could probably be a designated hitter.
Could Lou Gehrig play today?
Yes.
Okay.
Lou Gehrig, yes. That guy was all muscle.
Yep. Okay.
Here's a little baseball question for you. I've always thought this, and no one ever agrees with me.
Okay. I'm a baseball nut, so I'm going to give you a good answer. I'm a baseball fiend.
Good.
Go ahead.
When Cal Ripken beat Lou Gehrig's record for the most consecutive games, don't you think it would have been the classiest move if he took it all the way up to the day of and took himself out of the lineup, but let Lou Gehrig keep the record?
I thought that would have been cool.
Like had a disease that made him have to stop, whereas Cal Ripken, he would have had to beat a higher record if he didn't get that disease. I think it would have been. I thought he should have let him keep the record. Do you agree?
I agree with that. That or tie it. I thought maybe he might have been stopped at 21:30, so him and Gehrig were equal. I mean, I thought he might do that.
Tie it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And Gehrig would be on top since he was first, and then get Ripken with the same number. I thought that would have been like the pretty cool move. Plus, Ripken has the advantage to know what the record is, so now he could play. When he wouldn't play to get to that record. Gehrig didn't have that. Either. Well, he got sick. But there's always that advantage when you're chasing the record. You see what it is. So you're gonna do some things to get to it.
True.
So he had those two advantages.
Good point.
And Gehrig was obviously he was, stat wise, it wasn't too close, But I agree with you there, Joe. I would have liked to have a tie or have Lou keep the record. He's my all time favorite player, so I'm a Lou Gehrig guy. That was
me too.
Quite a story. Quite a story.
There's a story, and me with anything with like a heart and like a little bit of a sadness behind the greatness. It's like I always loved that the most.
Well, that was the saddest movie I ever saw when I was a kid. The Pride of the Yankees, Gary Cooper playing Gehrig. Yeah, I couldn't hold it in at the end. When he started to show the effects of the disease.
You almost feel like Gary Cooper is Lou Gehrig in that movie.
Yeah, exactly. Even though he didn't play like it, with the way it looked, but you still thought it was Gehrig. That's how great it was. All right. Yeah. We could probably have a whole show on baseball, but let me finish up. Ocean. First word that comes to mind, Joe, with ocean.
Ocean. Traffic.
Okay. That's first word. All right. I got to know what you're going to say on this one. Redwood tree.
Redwood?
Yeah, redwood.
I love redwood trees. Northern California, I would just say.
Okay.
San Fran.
Okay. And Joe, this is
always wanted to live there.
Okay. Have you been there?
Yes, a few times. And one of my regrets in life is we had an opportunity, my wife and I, when we were dating, to live there when she took an internship for her PhD, and we chose San Diego instead of San Francisco, and I still regret it because we ended up hating San Diego, which I thought I was going to love because it was such a beach town. I didn't like it. Had no vibe, had no heart.
It's funny because we did San Diego and we drove up to San Francisco on our honeymoon. That was our move, to L.A. and then up to San Fran. Yeah, and then a side trip to Vegas.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah, it got nicer as we were going north. It kept getting more beautiful. Top 3 states. This is my impromptu. I didn't have this on my little hit and miss list, but top 3 states in the nation.
Geez. Colorado, and I've never been there. Everybody I meet from Colorado, I always hit it off with them, and I've always had this like fantasy that like Colorado's got just like the best people out of any state in the country.
Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah, from what I've experienced too.
I love Northern California, so if we could cut it in half, Northern California. I don't like Southern California, but I love Northern California. One of my favorite cities that is underrated is Minneapolis. So I'm going to go with Minnesota as the state, just because I love Minneapolis. I never thought I would. It's just such an artsy place. I couldn't believe how much I love the vibe there.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah. Okay. And Joe, if you had one wish, just one wish that would be granted regarding mental health, what would it be? And it's going to be granted. What's your wish?
That my son could just lose all of his panic and anxiety and just live a relaxed life.
Okay. Joe, that was some hour and a half or whatever it was. I really enjoyed that, and thank you very much for coming out. I'd like to maybe have you think about coming on again in maybe a month or two. I mean, this was exciting. I'd like to hear about your mental health tour. How that goes.
Might have been. This might be my best interview ever.
I love
really good. You're like a Howard Stern interviewer.
Yeah, well, I like these like a conversation. So I appreciate that a lot. That was Joe Matarese. I'm Ray K, and we'll see you next time.